to the degree that you want something is the degree you're afraid of not having.
Yeah.
God, I wish I started when I was younger. I go, well, yeah, but you didn't. So shut the fuck up and let's keep going.
Right.
Like, you can't. Nobody changes until they change their energy. And when you change your energy, you change your life.
Because it's not till then that it's really real. Yeah. It's like, oh, this is way worse than I thought. It's like, oh yeah, it's way, way worse than you thought.
Yeah.
But luckily there's more to you than you think.
All right, my brother.
Let's start things off with a little gratitude prayer. And a little aspiration, man.
Why not?
I tell people all the time, I said, look, what if I'm not a believer? I'm like, hey, man, even just gratitude before a meal makes the food taste better. I promise you.
It's really true, right? And then you get even deeper. One of the greatest practices before a meal, one of the best opening prayers, it comes from a book, Island by Aldous Huxley. And he says, take the very best bite, put it on your fork. And when you eat that piece of food and you eat that combination of food, just enjoy it to the absolute fullest. Like swish it around in your mouth and just really savor every bit of that flavor, because in that enjoyment, there's an inherent gratitude, right? Like that's what we have here. And sometimes we'll just be so numb and so grayed out that we won't even see it. But to really feel it, like everything else will feel the gratitude if we actually allow ourselves to indulge in that bliss.
Agree. The pleasure is good for you.
It is.
I'll tell you this story. I'm with, the great director, Spanish director, Pedro Almodovar. Mm-hmm. I was working on Sahara with Penelope Cruz, and she's friends with him. And Breck Eisner was the director. And Breck, we were sitting at the dinner table one night at this restaurant. They had papas fritas, which is these French fries with fried eggs on top of it, melted.
Yes.
It was awesome, right? And Breck, the director, saw it and was like, oh my gosh, this is like it's a heart attack waiting to happen. And Pedro, who's a real sensualist, leans over and he goes, Breck, the pleasure is good for you. Yes.
Exactly. And we deny ourselves that all too often, either because of some perceived morality that we have to live up to. But one of the beautiful things about, your memoir that you wrote is that you really fucking lived, man. You didn't find balance by staying in a narrow band right in the center. You found balance by touching the extremes and going out like, what's the extreme over here? Okay, isolation, meditation, peyote in the cage of a mountain lion. What's the extreme over here? Okay, I'm gonna live at Chateau Marmont for 18 months and just fucking live like a wild man, and you touched it and then ultimately came back and center through the polarity. And I think that's a hell of a story.
Yeah, well, I've always been headed in a general direction, but I have lived and looking back, I've gone, well, I like to pick a direction and give myself 16 lanes within which to swerve. Okay, so I give myself quite a few lanes to swerve as long as I'm headed in that general direction. And yeah, I have swung to the left and right and found the padding on the walls and was like, okay, that's far enough over there. We're not going over. We don't want to go over the cliff. That's a stop, not a stay. Let's veer on back over here to the middle. But yeah, I wanted to, test thresholds of certain things and see sometimes if I could grow from it. I always ended up growing from it and didn't notice it till later on in life sometimes, but just test it out and see if I could find my slipstream in that place and come to a spot where I go like, you could do this for the rest of your life. Or no, you know what? This is just a stop, not a stay. This one doesn't have compounding assets in your future. This one doesn't have longevity. My time at the Chateau Marmont was awesome, but that was talk about, hedonism. That was my 2-year hedonism tour. And I had a great time, but I knew it was a stop, not a stay.
Right. Yeah, and you learn your boundaries by touching your boundaries. And those are the Chateau Marmont is the type of boundary that it feels like we need to touch it just to know it, just to have that lived experience of what that might be like. So we don't have that voice in our head wondering, what it would be like if I just took the fucking restraints off, if I just unfettered myself and lived. So we need to know that. And then on the other side, doing some of these other practices, these solitude practices that you talk about, which I definitely want to get into more, there's some incredible lessons that come at the end of those things on the other side, those paths of, quiet and stillness and solitude. I mean, those I've learned probably the most in my life from the more extreme end of those personal practices as well.
Yeah, I think the scary part is, say if you're going to say a time of like my time at the chateau or hedonism, you could say I'm going to step outside of myself and embrace and engage and be that sensualist of all the things coming in. The fear can be, if I really commit to this, will I remember that I have the key to unlock the door to go back,
Right.
So it's taken, it was scary at times, but it's taken years to get to a place to trust that, no, I can kiss the fire and walk away whistling here. Just don't, I don't want to go looking for trouble. I have before, but I've learned I don't want to go looking for the wrong kind of trouble. But to then trust that I got the key to get back. And then those times in solitude, those are scary in another way, because there's nothing extroverted at all about it. There is no outside engagement or frequency or pleasure at all. You're stuck with yourself. And that is a very restless place to be. Mm. So in that restlessness, can we trust? No. Sort of inversely trust? No. Stay here. Stay here longer in the discomfort. Do not pull the parachute. Don't pick up the phone. Don't grab the bottle. Don't look for outer ways to get a buzz in your life. Don't let yourself draw your attention off of yourself. And if you do that long enough, trusting I'll come out the other side of that without losing my freaking mind, which I've found we usually do if we stick with it.
Yeah. I want to stick with this theme a little bit because there's a lot to unpack here. For one, talking about the latter point that you made, really sitting with yourself. So the most powerful practice I've done isolations and different spiritual dietas and different things. But the strongest is I spent 6 days in what's called a darkness retreat. And I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but it's complete isolation in pitch black darkness, in absolute silence and absolute isolation. So it was like a bed and breakfast room that was kind of locked off. They delivered food in a blacked out hallway, and I had no contact with anybody, no sound, no music, no nothing, just absolute pitch dark, like no difference from eyes open, eyes closed.
Yeah.
And that was a rowdy self-introspection.
That was rowdy, man. Those are some long days, huh?
Long, and you don't even know days, nights. Sometimes I could hear a rooster, sometimes I could hear an owl, but you're not sure. You sleep when you want to sleep, and then you're awake when you want to wake. But the trippiest part is there's an endogenous DMT release that happens around day 3 or 4, sometimes day 5, but it always happens, everybody who goes through this. So I started entering a vision space similar to what the twilight of an ayahuasca journey would be like. And I was in vision space for 3 days on top of my isolation, on top of the darkness. So it's this radical alternate world where ultimately you start to understand who the essence of who you truly are is. And that is fucking invaluable. Like, however you can get there, that's the thing that I think is one of the most important lessons we can give.
Did you find that the re-entry back into society that you're like, I know when I come back from my bullshit meter is at 0. The mendacities that people speak, or I notice like, geez, you talk way too much, McConaughey. You're saying too many adjectives, adverbs, and noticing it from other people and just going, I had to really work on my patience with myself saying too much and other people saying too much by just jabbering when I come out of those things. Was that re-entry tough?
All the re-entries have been tough, but none tougher than this. This, I felt like I was like a peeled onion. Like I had a nice, tough brown skin and most things would slide off and I could maneuver through things and they all didn't land. I felt like all the calluses were just worn off and everything was crushing. So if it was sad, it was devastatingly sad. If it was joyous, it was blisteringly joyous. If it was out of alignment or it had that frequency that was a little bit wrong, like, some kind of mistruth or manipulation, it was completely revolting and intolerable. And it was really hard. I actually lamented the fact that it was necessary for me to put back some armor because I just couldn't exist in the ordinary world as this newborn, shucked oyster. I needed the shell.
It's a different thing to say, I want to be a monk or I want to go on a retreat for a month and come back, because the easier thing to do would be to continue that once you got to that point, right? And probably go into that, stay in that hermitage. But then, to have it's a different thing. And I think, I've had times where I thought monk was my calling. but I've talked to some monk friends of mine, some of them I speak about in the book. They're like, no. You're supposed to be a communicator. You're supposed to be back and engaging and try to hold on to your path in the midst of that. When at times it would be easier to go, no, the old hermitage sounds right on the money.
Yeah, I feel that. And one of the things that was expressed to me, there's a Quechua word, and the Quechua is one of the medicine languages down in South America. And it's called chacaruna, and it means bridge. And one of the, maestros told me, he's like, you're a chacaruna, you're a bridge. You're the one who's supposed to take the teachings from this medicine, integrate them back into self, and bring them out into the world. And it sounds, very much the same as yourself. Like we're supposed to go touch these things and then write a memoir, do a podcast, talk about them, and share the lessons from them. Because if we stay out there in the hermitage, someone's got to go all the way on the trek to go find that wisdom.
Yeah. Very true. Very true.
Yeah. So what about the other side, though? And I want to share this poem you wrote. I love the poems you had. I mean, I was really deeply impressed. You're an incredible poet. And obviously your performance, I expected to be great reading the book, but the poetry really blew me away. And so one of the things you said, when you're talking about kissing the fire, you said, I swallow vitamins with a beer, I do. I chew more tobacco than I ought to. I crawl around and chase the moon and sleep with women who ride in on brooms just so I can kiss the fire and walk away whistling.
Now, sometimes those lips have been chapped and that whistle's like this.
No doubt. But there's another aspect of trusting yourself in that, trusting your ability to go into those dark, sticky places. Mm-hmm. And was that something that was, you had any intention behind, like knowing that you needed to trust yourself to do it, or were you just drawn to the fire?
Well, I let we all have the part in this, I believe, that is drawn to the fire. But I decided to go, it was me testing out agnosticism as well. It was me at a time in my life, not as much trying to say, hey, I don't believe God exists, but me going, all right, big boy, self-determination, you got free will. Let's see how much you really got your hands on the wheel. Let's see how close you can go. Let's see how much you can swerve on these lanes. Let's see if you can do donuts in the middle of the 16 lanes and come around to keep heading the same direction. So it was a bit of a challenge to myself, but I also, wanted to get through a certain, maybe to a puritanical morality that I know can sometimes carry. And I wanted to say, no, wait a minute. Maybe you need to allow yourself to have a little more pleasure. Maybe some of that hedonism is okay to allow yourself. So let's go test that, because I am pretty disciplined and grew up in a very, not puritanical, but very sort of rote and right. And this is what you do, this is what you don't do. Like I said in the beginning of the book, I mean, I grew up being taught that you don't have premarital sex. And as I said in the book, I did when I was 15. And at the time I was sure I was going to hell. And now I said, I just hope that I'm sure that's not the case. You know what I mean? So, but I wanted to say, what are the, what if, you've worked here, go have some rock and roll years. You've never lived in downtown Hollywood. You've always been on the outskirts. You've been in your Airstream. You've taken a lot of solitudinal trips. Go right in the middle of it. Buy yourself a pair of leather pants and get your motorcycle. Go have your Jim Morrison years and let's go. And, and then I said, oh, well, did I pass the year 27? Because that seems to be when they all die. I said, all right, I'm past that. So I don't have that little numerology I'm running from. Mm-hmm. And, and I did it pretty healthily. I got close, but I went through it pretty doggone honestly. And I don't have really any bridges that were burned. I didn't mistreat anybody. No one got hurt. It was fun, but it was, okay, that's what stopped me. I stayed 2 years of that was good. Tested that out, enjoyed that. Let yourself say, hey, it's a Saturday. Hey, let's go have 2 years of Saturdays. Mind you, I worked during the time, made a couple movies, but still I allowed myself to just have that point of view of like, forget responsibility for a minute. Geez, your responsibilities are like, I'm getting tired of hanging out with you, Mr. Responsible. So let's go just being in an arena where everyone's like, it's transient. What do you mean? It's a romantic version of what the 60s were like. You know what I mean? Let's just go there. So yeah.
It seems important that, we all have these prisons of conditioning that are thrust upon us, and that usually, in a good natured way. Certainly your family was impressing a lot of strong values and a lot of good morality but there's prisons that come with societal, ideas and constructs, and then the constructs of your parents, and then your own, proclivities that create these things. And sometimes we just need to burst through these prison bars like Juggernaut and say, like, all right, if I don't want to be entrapped, I want to be free. And to be free, I got to have enough momentum to carry me through these prison bars, demolish them, and then I can reclaim my own agency.
Sure. And sometimes, I think it could be thrown in the version of, hey, go get it out of your system is a way that some people phrase it. You know what I mean? And I have learned this, that if you don't, it's going to come out somewhere down the line, maybe in a more awkward way or a more tragic way. That looseness of living and saying yes to so many things. And yes, I have more lagniappe, more please, double dessert, of that. That's gonna, if you don't exercise that, and hopefully you can do it in a place where the walls are padded,
Right.
So,
Right.
You got to go into those with some, I put your helmet on, chin strap, and mouth guard, you know what I mean? Because this, we're going to be banging around here, man. But if you can, it was a great 2 years. I've had other times where even, recently I'll go to my brother's ranch. It's 1,600 miles, 1,600 square, 1,600. Yeah, what is it? 1,600 acres, excuse me. And it's in the middle of nowhere. And there's just no fence. It's horizon everywhere. I'm like, okay, let's forget the clock. I don't care about suns. Let's have our own 6-day solitaire where you don't know if it's night or day. And whatever you want, you can have it. And let's just see. And you know what? You really can't. What's the worst that can happen? You're going to end up out in the middle of a field 2 miles from the place, land in the middle of the desert. Well, okay. That's a form of a padded wall. You're going to survive that. There's not a cliff to fall off of, you know what I mean? You're not in a bomb area. There's not too many rattlesnakes everywhere. So go ahead and let's not be concerned. Let's lose concern for a while and stretch out, shake the city off of you is what my good friend's housekeeper used to tell us when we'd come home from a weekend of camping. She goes, oh, you boys went out shaking the city off of you, huh? And you got to do it sometimes. And sometimes in the city where you shake the city off of you.
Yeah, that's a great idea for everybody to recognize, is the ability to just allow yourself to be free. And sometimes it's the walls that could be spiky could be like a heroin wall. Like that's a spiky wall, right? So it's not even about just drunk driving and making sure that you're safe and making sure that no, cop with a Marine haircut is going to body slam you for playing bongos, a little bit later than you should. Those are kind of the walls that we all understand because we've been in that world. But there's just drugs you don't want to fuck with because they're too spiky, and it's not worth trying to test that. Don't test with that fire. That's like lava. You don't want to kiss lava.
There you go. That's what I hear, that there are some some fights you don't want to pick,
right?
That you got to measure the risk versus reward. And that's what I mean by I think it's a good idea to choose ones and choose places and times, meaning if it's going to be a big weekend with the buds, Vegas or whatever, all right? Well, if we're really going to do it, I want my schedule to be clear until next Thursday morning. Not Monday morning. No. If we're really going to do it, I'm going to still be in a condition that's going to carry, and a Monday's going to be tough. Tuesday's going to be tough. Wednesday's a little too soon, but Thursday after a few workouts and being back, hydration, et cetera, then that'll work. But yeah, I like to measure when do you have a buffer, where it's after you're going to let your freak flag fly. Give yourself another 3, 4, 5 days where you're like, now just let me come off of that and clean up. So yeah, picking those places out though, because you don't want to just go out and do them in the middle of society every day. Like we said, society has spikes. Don't pick those fights. I've picked those fights, and they didn't pay off the risk versus reward. I always say this, have a point to prove, but don't have to always prove a point. Well, I've had times in my life where I had to prove a point. I was like, well, hang on a second. You built enough in your life, McConaughey. You don't need to be going around trying to prove points. You know what I mean? Take it easy on yourself. And if you need to, you go to your family and your good friends and go out there to that ranch and go have it out. wrestling matches and all. Let's Valhalla this son of a bitch. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But pick a spot where the fire's not going to become a forest fire.
Yeah.
Pick a spot where those spikes aren't going to injure you. You may get bloody, you may get bruised, but I think we can go out there and no one's going to have to go to the emergency room. That's what I'm saying.
I think for me, Burning Man was when I went to there the first time, that was a real experience of that, because the party just goes nonstop and it's like every pleasure that you can imagine is permitted. You can actually go and sit in meditation in the temple or go to the anal fisting tent a little bit farther down the hall, and just whatever your thing is, however you want to let your freak flag fly, you can just go and do it. Now, I spent, no time on really doing either of those two things. It was mostly just dancing and partying and being with my friends. But you also need that integration time like you're talking about at the end. And conversely, I've seen people run into the spikes doing spiritual practices. I had a doctor friend of mine who's transitioning from Western medicine into a more holistic medicine practice. He decided he was going to do 40 sits of ayahuasca in 60 days. And that didn't give him enough time to integrate any of that. And it took him like 2 years living on the land in a clay hut that he built to just recover from that, right? So he pushed himself too far on the other side.
Yeah, there was no demarcation on the trips.
Yep.
So when he was done, 40 compacted days in 60 days, it took 2 years for that to unpack itself.
Yep.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, so I think that all these lessons, that's what I love about your book, is that the life lessons that you provide are like tangible. They apply, and they apply in ways that, people who haven't lived it, you just can't share that knowledge unless you've walked in that and like felt what it was like to book. Like if I tried to, book a Burning Man, book like a podcast or something right after Burning Man, like that wouldn't work. That's not going to fly. And if I try to go right back into work in a board meeting after coming back from the Peruvian jungle, that's not going to fucking fly. Like, learn these lessons. And if you read these lessons and you hear something like this, then maybe the first time you do it, you don't try to like run into this mistake. And that's just a little benefit. You might need to do the shit for yourself to really learn it. But at least like when it happens to you, you won't have to do it 3 times to learn the lesson. You'll just have to do it once.
Yeah. Well, as anarchist as our spirits want to be at times, and this comes with age, but again, it goes back to that having a point to prove, but not always having to prove a point, knowing which fights to pick. There's rules and expectations in society. Play the game. Know your zone. Have some context. Give some structure to that. Be aware of those things. Then you can find places where you can have your complete freedom. And I don't mean just times where we go off to the extremes. Then we navigate and through those things, rules, regulations, in ways that we're like, yeah, I get it. I'm with it. I understand why the rules are. Maybe I don't think it's applicable to me, but I understand why it's society. So I'm gonna abide by it. I'm not gonna buck it, because a lot of people need that rule. There's this guy. I go to Utah a couple of years ago, floating down we're river rafting through Utah. This huge canyons. And our river guide, you could just tell he had a bit of a history. So I started, middle-aged guy, about 35. You could tell he was a seeker and he had been lost before and was trying to find himself at this time. And I said, well, how long have you been here? He goes, well, I was here, in Utah, and I was a river raft guide for about 10 years. And then I went off, and he went off someplace, California somewhere. And he goes, I came back 2 years ago to be river raft again. I needed it. I go, what'd you need? He goes, the walls. I was like, yeah.
Yes.
I got you. That open horizon in Southern California was, whoa, wait a minute. Couldn't trust himself, was getting in. He needed the walls. We need some of us at all different times. We all do at different times. I need certain boundaries to create our freedom. We talk a lot about that in different ways in the book of even times where I think it's good for us to create our own boundaries. Mm-hmm. And have our own resistance for which to overcome. And then also times when we are running downhill, when we do love the open, free horizon, how to not trip ourselves and create a wall where we don't need one, because trust that, oh, the walls are coming, the resistance is coming, so I'm going to enjoy this freedom right now. I'm running downhill. Don't trip myself because the uphill's coming. So trusting in that as well, trusting in the times when things are going well and you're feeling very free and good with yourself, to trust that it's okay to feel that good and that free, because the uphill's coming. It'll be there. You don't have to create one, but that seems to be an art with which to navigate life in general.
One of the pitfalls that I think we can all fall in is we'll mitigate the joy and the happiness and the bliss of when things are going good, because we're preparing ourselves for that potential uphill climb, that potential time where we run into that red light and things are not going well. So we're like, look, don't enjoy this too much, buddy, because if you do, the disappointment's coming. So you're trying to protect yourself. But that's absolutely the opposite way that a real warrior poet wants to live. Like, if you want to live fully, you can't be preparing for, to mitigate the disappointment, because the disappointment's going to be there anyways. It doesn't help.
I call it anticipation fatigue. If, for instance, if you and I are both runners, and if I come for the first time to come run with you on your trail, and I run 5 miles every day and you run 5 miles every day, but I've never run your trail, I will get I will get tired more quickly running your trail, because I don't know what's around the next bend. And at about mile 3.5, I'm thinking, man, maybe this is 4.5. The end coming up, it's bound to be around the next corner. And all of a sudden I'm over fatigued, much more fatigued than if I'd run the 5 miles on my track, because I know I got a feel for when my 5 miles is up. We do that in life. People do it right now with COVID. If people are hopping up at night, going to bed every night thinking tomorrow morning, maybe we re-engage. Tomorrow morning it's gone. And you wake up the next morning, oh, no, it's not. But tonight again, I go, oh, tomorrow morning. Oh, no, it's not. You're wasting about 30% of your energy thinking that, oh, tomorrow might be the day. The end line might be there. The outcome might be there. Where if we do the opposite and try to project further out, like for run 5 miles, but get in our mind that it's actually a 10-mile run, all of a sudden you just breeze across the finish line and go, oh, shit, I was ready to go for another 5. You know what I mean?
Aim to shoot through the target. That's one of the things you talk about.
The other side of it, Yeah. And our survival mechanisms on a cellular level, I think, come to fruition in those times, because we're calling them out by mentally preparing that, oh, this is going to go on longer than I thought. I know the best work I've done in my job as an actor are times, man, where I'm so in the process that on the last day of filming, when they go, that's a wrap, I go, okay, I'll see y'all tomorrow morning. And they go, no, there is no tomorrow morning. That's a film wrap. We are done. I'm like, oh, really? Or if you're a golfer, the best rounds I've ever seen people have, was when they're walking off the 18th green, ready to go to the next tee box. And they're told, no, the round is over. You shot 68. And like, oh, really? But if you start thinking on tee box 16, oh, I'm 1 under, I'm in the lead, you might have a bogey coming up.
Yeah, there's a great, you talked about that when the Bills went into a prevent defense playing against the Houston Oilers, right? That always was that thing where they were thinking so much, focusing so much on that end point of winning the game that they forgot to play the same way they played. They held the Bills to 3 points.
Not losing that game instead of winning that game, which is that sort of that, not doing what you can in the affirmative to get what you want, but actually getting on your heels to play defensively to protect what you don't want to happen, to protect yourself from and that's not an affirmative. We don't go to that. It's the difference of running away from something or running to something, and I think it's a good practice when we can to always go, okay, I may be wanting to hide out or maybe wanting to run away from this thing, but I at least need to figure out what I'm running to.
And I've felt that, that was a lesson my mom gave me early. I was a basketball player, but she was a professional tennis player, made it to semis of Wimbledon, so had a lot of experience. And there's a funny thing that happens when you're playing tennis, when you get to, you've won the 5th game and you're 1 game away from winning the set or winning the match. You start thinking about the winning of the match or the winning of the set rather than that next stroke and just playing the game. Like, can I rip this forehand service return right down the line and fucking wink at him? Yes. Can I do that? And if you could do that,
rally.
Yeah, exactly.
And
then just
happens.
Yeah, you fucking rip it. When you can do that, you're playing. And that's like that Michael Jordan where right before he's about to tear your heart out, he just gives you a smile. Like, I've already seen the ending to this movie, motherfucker. And it's where it's a good ending, and that's the thing that we want to be in, because he's playing the game like through the end of the game. And that's the thing, rather than just focusing so much and getting that paralysis of worrying about the result.
Do you notice though, because I call this playing in the third person, or and today with social media and phones, and we the world is more a mirror for us than ever before.
True.
We even, to a certain extent, have our own sense of self-worth based on what millions of strangers say about us with a thumbs up or thumbs down or a comment. So I say this with athletes. You got to watch playing in the third person. You got to watch, because the Jumbotron's there. The player that's running the kickoff back for the touchdown can look up at himself on the Jumbotron. How am I looking? And right about that time is when you're going to get caught.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if we can be more subjective and stay in the process of the doing, and then let them come up and go, game over, 48-7. Match over. You just won the 5th set tiebreaker. I did. I was ready for the next set. That seems to be the honey hole of if we can stay present and stay subjective. Or like you're saying, have such supreme confidence like a Michael Jordan, where you're able to look at the Jumbotron, look outside yourself and go, watch this. I already know I'm making the shot.
Yeah.
But a lot of what happens is we get tight by getting outside of ourselves going, oh, what if I miss the shot? Oh, am I going to get the ball at the end of the game? I'm not sure I want. Oh, boy, don't pass the ball to that guy. You want fight, you want the ball. But we don't always in life want the ball. We may tell ourselves arrogantly like that, hey, no fear, which I think is a bunch of BS. I'm saying, yes, fear. Absolutely have fear. What's cool is overcoming that fear. And then that's how we see it. If you can overcome that and go, no, I do want the ball.
Yeah.
To such an extent that you don't even have to think about it.
Yeah. It reminds me actually of, you talk about this also in the book, which is great. And I'm sure you have a lot better examples than me, but I got into stage acting when I was in college, and the city of Richmond collaborated with the University of Richmond, and they put on some big plays, and it was the first play I auditioned for. And I just went out there. I had no fear because I didn't identify as a stage actor. It didn't really matter. And it was a musical, and I can't sing worth a damn. Like, I have no business singing at all. And I just went out there and I tried out for this part. It was a cool part. It was like a warrior in Bertolt Brecht's Mother Courage. And the character was Eilif, and I just fucking let it rip. Like, I moved chairs aside. I was jumping on boxes. I was like bellowing and just having a blast. And then at the end, she was like, can you sing? And I was like, I don't know. And she's like, sing Happy Birthday. And I just fucking let it rip. It was awful. But she's like, we'll figure it out. Like, you got the part. And then I went out there, and it was a great experience. I tried out for my next play, but now I was thinking maybe I'm an actor, And to make it worse, the part I was going out for was already cast with a girl that I was really into, Sally Metzel. I was obsessed with Sally Metzel. So not only did I want to get this part, because I wanted to have this romantic scene with Sally Metzel on the stage and rehearse it all the time, where we do a rehearsal kiss and get it in. And I just totally blew it. I just totally choked it, and it was, and that was just such a great lesson of like, part one, I'm free. I have no restraints, and I just let it rip. Part two, I wanted it so bad. And it reminds me of what you said about Hollywood. You can have anything you want as long as you don't need it. And I needed the part the second time. The first time, I just wanted it.
Right. Well, we don't, any performance right now, life, where you go from here, or performance on stage, it's okay to, want to do well so you can get the kiss. But you ain't getting the kiss if you're thinking about the kiss.
Yes.
While you're performing.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And it's a little bit of that, again, back to trusting. No, if I just stay right here and stay in the moment, and do this for myself, I have a better chance of getting the result that I want. I'll get that kiss, you know? But that's a tough thing. That's also trust, you know? I've gotten a lot more. I've gone between this. Look, sometimes I'll write the headline. This is what I want, put it out there, project it, and then live the story towards that and show up and go, damn, that headline still holds. Other times I've been like, no, I don't give a damn about the headline. Put my head down, process. I don't give a damn about the result. I'm just going to stay in the middle of this process and work my way freely through it. And those are the times where I've actually gotten some of my best results, when I didn't give a damn about the result, or wasn't going, I'm going to do really good here because, no, I'm just going to do and be true here. And what the fuck happens, man.
Yeah.
You guys recording this? Just make sure that. Are you recording this? Make sure it counts, because I'm in the zone. You know what I mean? I'm going to say that one time before we start shooting. For the next 30 days, I'm not going to talk to anybody, but I hope you're catching it. You know what I mean? That's the best work that I've done, to stay in the process. And I find that you do get more results sometimes when you don't think about the result.
Absolutely. Are there moments? I remember a story from James Earl Jones. He was playing Othello, and one night he played Othello, and everything was just magic, and he was just on fire. And the story is that when they went back to the dressing room after the play, he was not talking to anybody and seemed somewhat despondent. And someone's like, "What's wrong? You just gave the most magnificent performance we've ever seen." And he was troubled. He's like, "I just don't know how I did it. Like, I don't know what happened. I don't know how I reached this next level, this next gear." And that was something that was at that point perplexing. I think, most likely that's just divine grace coming through you when you completely empty out and those things happen. When you look back at your career acting, you've had some amazing performances. Are there times that you think like, this time was particularly special? And if you have those moments, like, what do you think was the quality that led up to that?
I've done it long enough now that when I'm on it, that sort of objectivity and subjectivity, I know that was true. That was true. That was great. I don't even need to look at the take. I'll look up at the director and go, no. Then you say it. Because if you say it out loud, part of what James Earl Jones was doing, if you start to figure that thing out, it can pop the magic bubble to name it. You know what I mean? I always say this on sets. People, when we're acting, people can talk about what the scene's about for too much, and you're kind of like, shh. Our version of communication is to do it between action and cut. That's our communication with the director. Mm-hmm. But I will say this: what have I done? I've found tools and habits with which I was consistently practicing that, by sheer numbers, mathematics, scientifically, led to more of those moments via preparation, via knowing how to prepare. All the work, I do all my work before I get to the set. That's my work. That's my late night sweating. Oh shit, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. How am I going to pull this off? I don't know. Blah, blah, blah. Stay with it. Months of that. And then so if I do the good work, I show up on set. I'm playing now. All that, throw it out. My playbook's gone, because hopefully if I've done my work, I've integrated it past my intellectual mind into my being, where it's instinctual. And that that's a process of preparation that I've found has led to more of those moments where I'm like, oh yeah, you hit that one. Ruse.
Yeah. And are there any of those? So let's take that as a category where you're on it. And I love that you used that word. That was the name I named my company for exactly that same reason of just being on it, right? And reaching that potential. Of those moments, were there those moments where there was just like, there was on it plus? There was like, I'm on it, and also I felt the hand of the divine, like animating my whole emotional, physical, mental body in such a way that this was something that I'll always remember.
I mean, I've had moments where in part and parcel, those are those same moments, meaning where I just said, oh, I'm on it, and I know when I'm on it. And I said that word, no. Knowledgeably, I've come to the conclusion, but it's a belief. I feel it. It's coming from the feeling. It's not coming from the knowing first to then know that I felt it. No, I felt it, therefore I know.
Yeah.
So it's that feeling of, when I do my best work, I don't have the thing memorized. I do because I've read it 1,000 times, I broke it down and know exactly what I'm saying. But on the day, I'm not thinking about what I'm going to say, but I'm seeing a picture in my mind and saying what I see in the picture. And then you respond, and I see a picture in my mind, and I tell you what I saw in the picture. So it is a bit of an out of body, inner body sort of relationship there. The Onnit Plus. I don't know about Onnit Plus. I do know Onnit written in a marker and Onnit in neon lights and Onnit solar powered.
Yeah.
Well
said. Well said. The stakes.
Ones that you go, oh no, that transcends. Oh no, that was other. That was so on it that it was the on it and other than.
Right.
It was all of it.
It's like where you can feel the ripples that have just gone out into the world, even though the ripples haven't happened yet. It's like, you did something.
And it's undeniable. And if anyone's not trying to fight against receiving it, they're like, I don't even say anything. Yep, moving on.
Yeah.
I tell you, for me, here's where I've had some of those moments in filming, and they've usually been some different emotional scenes, like a Time to Kill, the final summation, or even there's a scene in Interstellar where my character Cooper sees his kids.
After you went to the watery planet and lost those 30 years, that was the scene I was going to mention, because that scene is one of the most powerful scenes I've ever seen any actor portray in any movie ever. And I'm not saying that lightly because we're doing a podcast. It's legitimately one of the most powerful scenes I've ever seen.
Well, I go to tell you a little secret about both of those scenes. For both of those scenes, when I showed up on the day, the director goes, okay, we're going to shoot the wide shots first, some reactions and stuff, let you warm up and get into it. And I didn't look at the director either time. I had a note written in my hand that I quietly, just without looking at him, because I don't want to look him in the eye. I don't want to step outside of myself. And then on the note, it says, see you, which is the letter C and the letter U, which means close up. And each time those directors, instead of going, wait, are you sure or whatever, they just kind of in the same cadence to the crew as they read that. And they were like, actually, you know what we're going to do? We're going to line this up. We're going to put the close up on Cooper, set the cameras right here. We're going to do this. And each one of the takes in those two movies are the very first take. Yeah. Why? Because in some ways, everything after take one is acting. So I'm saying, okay, all I got to do is relax, understand the context of who I am and who I'm seeing in my children, or what story I'm telling in the summation. And if I can relax myself enough to be in the moment, see the picture, say and feel how I feel about it, whatever happens, no result, you don't have to do anything. Tell me, you don't have to do anything in this scene, Matthew. Just listen and feel. Well, then I'm reacting for the very first time. So like, for instance, in Interstellar, Nolan wanted to show me, let's rehearse it. I'll show you. I said, no. And he knew by me, that meant, no, first time. I don't want to see it. I want to be surprised. I don't know what the videos are going to be. I want to see it for the first time and react for the first time. Now, good actors can improve a performance or make it seem more true to the viewer on take 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 72. But it's all acting after take one. And so that's what I like, to get in a place where I feel comfortable enough to know my man, my character enough to go, there's only one take. It's first take. And that's the only time it's ever truly live. Everything after that is Memorex. And hey, I love Memorex. And I've improved many a performance on take 4 and take 8. Okay, yeah. I have.
Yeah.
Take 1's the real one. That's the one where you go, yep, to the present. Yep, that's all we need. Moving on.
Yeah, and you can feel it. you can really feel that. You can feel that moment. There's, that's, I think, the beauty of acting is it's real. There's certain times where it's real. And it also brings me to this other idea. So I trained with a Siberian mystic for a short amount of time. And one of the exercises she had us train was we go around in a circle in a game, and we would just practice going from emotion to emotion. It's very much like an actor's game. Now you're really sad. Now you're really happy. Now you're jealous. Now you're surprised. Now you're enraged. And you go through and try to practice this. And the point was to give you agency over your emotional body, so that your emotional body wasn't steering you. You were able to steer it. So if you found yourself in a position where you're getting really angry, what the Buddhists call shempa, that hook, you have the ability to say, oh, no. I've trained how to steer this emotion of anger into another emotion. As a trained actor like yourself and a practiced actor, have you ever used some of these, techniques you have to say like, wow, I'm feeling kind of depressive now, or I'm feeling really agitated now. Let me just use my craft and change my emotion as a little temporary red light to get myself out of this space, to give me a little different purview or perspective on the situation.
I don't think so. I know I think the way I've approached acting is maybe an inverse of that. I don't want to. I think I'm a better actor when I'm not trying to control my emotions. When I'm actually going, again, you don't have to do anything. Wherever you feel like going, ride in the scene or out of the scene, or blow it up, or go with it and let it be magic. No rules to it. Let's listen and see what happens. Let's know who I am, what the obstacle is in the situation. What do I need? How can I overcome that obstacle? Because every scene, and also then saying, because I'm very good at blowing through obstacles. I'm very good at blowing through the yellow light and saying, I'm not giving crisis credit. And it's been an asset for me in many ways in life. At the same time, in acting, I've learned, and this, my great mentor of mine, Penny Allen, taught me, is like, look, you got to give more credence to your obstacles, because what they will do is give you more to overcome, and overcoming them will give you more gratification, or not overcoming them will cost you more. So you need it to cost you more. Every choice you're making, ask yourself, does it cost you? So when I look at a script, I love scripts and have for the last 14 years of dramas usually that go, this is costing my character. This choice and this thing cost me. If it didn't go this way, my character may die, or whatever the consequences may be. Or if I can overcome this obstacle, it may be the greatest, truest victory for this character can have, and I got to pull that off. Because it's written, but the words don't make the audience believe it and go, yes, I believe he did that. Wow, I see myself in that. That's when the communication through the art that I do as an actor starts to really translate and communicate with people. If you can see yourself through a character, that's our favorite characters. Or you can go, oh, I know that guy. Or I know that part of myself when I was that guy. Or, oh, that's the guy I'm working to be. That's when that communication and good, I think that would be a difference between art and self-expression. I love that line. I believe there's a difference between art and self-expression. And if there wasn't a difference, and you said, well, all self-expression is art, which I've heard people say and I disagree with, I'm like, well, as my buddy Nick Pizzolatto says, well, then, okay, then every 12-year-old girl's diary is as good as Shakespeare. No, it's not. You know what I mean? There's a difference between art and self-expression. So all of self-expression is not art, but all great art, I do believe, is self-expression delivered in an artful form that communicates, and the viewer can subjectively see humanity in that performance.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's interesting you were talking about these personally meaningful costs, because in that scene that we're talking about with Cooper, one of the things that was instilled in you from the family, number one, you knew you wanted to be a father. Number two, one of the highest values that you could have is time. So all punishments in your family were immediate and then over with, because time was instilled as the greatest value. Well, what did Cooper lose? What was the cost? It was time with his family, and that is like a deeply personal thing even to you, which then elicited, a deeply personal performance, which was, created that, kind of incredible moment. And then going to what you're saying, at the end there, it's really, it's the lesson from Brother Christian in your book, where you were going through a lot of different challenges and experiences. And I'll let you kind of take over this story about how you kind of unloaded all of the things that were on your mind and what he said and how, that made you feel a little less alone.
Oh, yeah. It's a beautiful story, beautiful time happening in my life. So I'd just gotten famous after Time to Kill opens up. The world had become a mirror. I'm meeting no strangers. People were coming going, I love you. And I'm like going, who are you? I've only said that to like 4 people in my life. People going like, I'm so sorry about Miss Hud. And I'm like going, wait a minute. What's your name? How'd you know I had a dog? How'd you know her name was Miss Hud? And how'd you know she just got cancer? You just skipped 4 things and came right into my life and said, So I was like, whoa. I was getting offered all kinds of roles and offered all kinds of things that I'd never been offered before. And I needed to go away and sort of let all this immediate frequency of affluence that was coming at me sort of just become discriminate in that, discerning. Wait a minute, what matters? What doesn't? Who am I in the midst of this? The roof of possibilities just got blown off of my head and it's wide open and my feet do not feel like they're on the ground. So I needed to take some time out. I need to take a walkabout. And I found this monastery in New Mexico that said, basically, if you can get off this Highway 21 and someone drops you off, it's a 13.5-mile walk down a dirt road because road's not in good enough condition to handle a car. But if you can walk 13.5 miles, ring the bell, we'll find a place for you to sleep. I'm like, that sounds like what I need. So I get dropped off by a friend, walk that 13.5 miles, show up at about sunset. Brother, Alred, I think it was, comes out, young monk, about 5'2". Hello, brother. Fellow traveler, welcome, come in, find me a place to sleep. I sleep on a cot. The next day I wake up and I go to Brother Alan. I said, look, there's someone I can talk to. I got things in my mind. I'm trying to make sense of the world, myself, things I'm feeling guilty about. He said, this man, Brother Christian, would be a good man for you to talk to. So Brother Christian and I go for a walk together through the desert. And I start unloading, confession, really. It's just unloading sins of my mind, sins of my deeds, thoughts, confusions, all these things that I'm feeling just lost and sad and angry and confused about. They're going with myself and with the world I'm in, trying to figure it out. And we walk for 4 hours through the desert. And the entire time he had his hands behind his back, head down, just listening intently. And I've not stopped talking. 4 hours. We end up back after 4 hours sitting on this little bench outside the chapel. And I'm finishing my purge to him, my verbal purge and confession. And I'm crying, man, and I got snots coming out of my nose. I did this. He's listening. I finally finish. 4 hours and 20 minutes later, he hasn't said a word. I'm sitting there. Silence. He says nothing. About 15 seconds go by, and I got him. And I look up at him. As I look up at him, he looks at me and he goes, me too. Oh, it was so beautiful. I crumpled, man. I was like, because he didn't give me advice.
Yeah.
He let me know, hey, it's part of the human condition. And it just sort of let the floodgates open on me to forgive, to see reality better. And it was 2 beautiful, simple words, and the only 2 words he said. And that's, it's just so true. Sometimes in life, we don't want to hear advice. We just want to know that, hey, we're not the only one.
I think more often than not, that's what we want. That is actually the etymology of compassion. It's to be with someone in their suffering, and to be with them is to say, like, no, I'm with you. I am you. That's talk about being with somebody, I am you. I am you. Like, we're the same. And the more that we can do that, it really is just such a valuable gift that we can give to anybody. We're always too busy trying to fix things from our position of, to fix somebody else, you have to put yourself in a position above them and say, like, well, I can. But if you just say, no, first of all, first step, me too. And then from there, what do we want to do? What do we want to do about it?
Out of this together.
Exactly. And it just changes the whole thing, because a lot of times when someone's in that position of hierarchy, you're like, nah, fuck you. You don't know me. You don't know what I'm going through. I'm not going to allow you to pull me out of this. Maybe it's our own need to do it. But if someone's down there with you right there in the trenches saying, yeah, me too. What should we do? How
are we going to go about this? How can we walk out of this? Yeah. And sometimes I realized this the other day, and I think when I put it in words, is that I find that what I don't like in someone else, the reason I may not like someone else or something, is because I see a part of me in them that I don't like. Or a part of me I've been that I didn't like that. I kind of regret that. If I could have a do-over of that part of me, I'd love to do that over. Sometimes that's it too, that our snap reaction that won't allow us to go, me too, is just almost a defense mechanism. Like if I say me too, that's admitting that that's part of myself, and I don't want to admit that. You know what I mean? So sometimes it's a snap reaction when actually what they're offering is a bridge, as you said earlier.
Yeah. The Hawaiian kahunas have a phrase called ho'oponopono, and the way that they go about it is anything that anybody is ailing. There's a legend of a Hawaiian kahuna that cleared out a mental hospital because he would go in there, and no matter what someone was going through, the paranoia, the delusions, the anger, the rage, whatever, he would find that in himself. And this is just a legend, but he would find that in himself, and that's the art of the ho'oponopono. Find that in himself, forgive that, love that aspect of self, and without doing anything to the other person, just be in their presence, finding and identifying whatever they're going through as self, and then applying that love and forgiveness to self. And then whatever forces are at work in this wild universe, we're actually manifesting the healing.
And you lead me into a wonderful topic. I'd love to hear what you think about it, and we should at least discuss it, because I'm all for it. Although my pastor says I'm pushing a big rock up a tall hill. It's this. I'm a big fan of the word selfish. I think everything has to be personal. And we see a contradiction usually in selfish, selfless, responsibility, freedom, wants, needs. But they're not. I don't believe they are. I believe they're a paradox, that there is a place where what's best for I is best for we, or what's best for you is best for me. What's best for we is best for me. What is the most selfless act is the most selfish act, which is the most selfish act is actually the most selfless act, where what we want is what we need, and what we need is what we want. Where we walk by the mirror and we look as good as we feel, and we actually feel as good as we look. That place is what I'm calling the honey hole. And we see them as contradictions, but it's okay to go, it has to be very personal. It actually needs to be very personal. And every decision we make should be very personal. And that does not mean it's at the exclusion of being the best decision for the most amount of people. Because I would say this, if I'm going to lie, cheat, and steal right now, that would be what we sort of traditionally call a selfish act. Well, you looked out for yourself right there, and that's all you cared about. But is it really selfish? I don't think so, because haven't I left crumbs now in my future, created yellow and red lights in my future, because everywhere I got to go, I got to look over my shoulder to see if the people that I lied, cheat, and stole from are there. So therefore, now I'm stealing my future time from myself, which is causing me to stress. I'm having to leave people. What did you say? I'm sorry, I was looking for something. And I'm not present. Oh, I got to leave this place. So-and-so's here. All of a sudden, I'm stealing my time to bring time back. I'm stealing my time from my future. So what was really more selfish act?
Yep.
I would say that was not a selfish act, truly. It was actually
short-sighted act.
Short money.
Yeah.
So short money and long money. And if we can have the patience and the sort of wherewithal to go, to lie, cheat, steal right now is an immediate green light. Yeah, but it's battery powered.
Yeah, no doubt.
What's the moves that we can make that create the solar powered green lights in our future, that create more freedom for us in our future, that have us where we don't have to look over our shoulder in the future and steal our future time? That's the lights that I'm interested in.
Yeah, well said. I think it reminds me of the quote that Rumi had, I am not a drop in the ocean, I am the ocean in a drop. And when you realize that you are interwoven and indispensable from the collective, you are a part of the collective, then the most selfish act is going to be the act that benefits the good of all. That is the para el bien de todos that we uttered in the prayer to start this. It's recognizing I am the all, so my actions in the good in the service of the all are going to be the best actions. And sometimes that requires, and almost always that requires, that I take care of me first, so that I can be this cup that overflows and people can drink not only from the cup, but from the saucer of what I'm overflowing. Otherwise, you'll just get drained. And then in that empty cup, that dry well may not be able to serve anything. It's a principle I have for, I lead a community. We call it fit for service. And the reason why we call it fit for service is because it's focused on the self, getting the self ready, fit, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually to serve. But it starts with numero uno.
Yes. And I think we more of us can take ownership of that fact.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe it's a fact. I don't think it's just another way.
Yep.
Look, even, people don't want to go defend themselves, a household, a community, a town, a city, a state, a nation, a people, until it's personal. The enemy starts trespassing onto your property. That's when we get off the porch.
Yeah.
Before that happens, we talk a good game. We write about it and intellectually put it out there and talk about the platitude of why it's right to go out and defend what you love. We don't really do a damn thing about it until it's personal. And I think that's something that more of us can own and make sure it's personal. Get more selfish in that way.
Yeah. Going back to movies, which are one of the great storytelling platforms that we have right now, I think about two movies that highlight the difference between the personal investment. So there's Braveheart, which is, basically a 2.5 hour, revenge orgy, but that needs to get set up by your love for Murren, William Wallace's, first wife. You have to love her so that when, the English slit her throat, you want the death of all English at that point. Like you are invested, personally invested. And there was another movie that didn't do so good. I think it was Clash of the Titans 2 on the remake of that. The opening scene is, the gods come and they destroy a ship that has a family. Well, you haven't even met them yet, So it's like, well, that's unfortunate. The waves came and they killed this ship, but you didn't know them. You didn't love them. So then the next 2-hour revenge orgy against the gods, you're like, all right, whatever, man. And you never got drawn in because it wasn't personal. Like you didn't feel it yourself.
Yep. Got to, whether it's that, time cover of the little girl. I forget what was the war she was in with the beautiful eyes years ago. It made it personal. Everybody saw their daughter. They saw their wife, their sister, themselves in that girl. Personal. It made it very personal. Thousands of unnamed people can get bombed or die of a plague in other countries, and we're like, oh, that's so sad. But one person that we know in our neighborhood, or maybe it's someone in our family, can get harmed, and then we're taking action. And they may have been harmed by the exact same thing that those thousands were. But we didn't really do anything about it until it was personal. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying let's own up to that and make it personal.
Yep.
And look around and see that it is actually personal.
Swim with the current of our natural human nature instead of just imagining that we should be better. Oh, we should care about that as much as, all right, let's just recognize who we are. We're human beings that have a tribalism that's ingrained within us, and we can't care about everything. There's just too many factors. So if we choose to make something personal, we choose to get in there and get wounded, lose a little blood, get a bloody nose, and like, okay, now I'm in the fight. Like now you woke up the dragon. But to wake up the dragon, we don't need to run away. Just put ourselves in the position where the dragon can be woke. And then at that point, you've really activated yourself into the game.
Heard. And I think on top of that another reality that I think we should all in each own up to more is that we aren't going to create a utopia. There's never going to be perfect justice in America or the world. We're never going to be our best selves. And that's cool. But we got to just stay in the race and commit to the chase of getting a little bit better. And in that is evolution, ascension, quality, lineage, building up. I'm becoming a little bit better. And if we can just kind of shake hands with becoming a little bit better, individually, if enough of us individually look in the mirror and say, I'm going to be a little bit better today, that's how we make the collective change. And if we can do that and say, I'm going to be a little bit better, and that's as good as it gets, and that's badass.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. One of the things that, I knew about you before Green Lights, which I didn't know much about your personal life other than you lived in Austin. And, I was around at the time where they made those bongo t-shirts and, I was around here for all of that. So I knew a few things, but I remember I watched a speech, and it was in this speech where you talked about who your hero was and how your hero was the self 10 years from now. And it was one of the most inspiring speeches. And if you could, for people who haven't heard, talk about that concept, because there's a real beauty in that idea of who your hero was.
I said, I think in my life, I need someone to look up to, someone to chase, and something to look forward to. And there's someone to chase. I said, thank you to my hero, which is me in 10 years. And I will never catch my hero, because tomorrow, he's not 9 years, 364 days away. He's 10 years away again. And he's always 10 years away with every coming hour and day. So I will never catch him. But boy, I get to chase him. And so whether we call that our transcendent selves, our better selves, it's a projection. It's writing a headline first to then pursue and update that headline. Because I might have already I'm 51. I could argue I've caught my hero, who my hero was when I was 41. But my hero is still at 61. He's a new hero. He's a more evolved hero, hopefully. But he's always moving 10 years further. And that, to me, seems to be as good as it can get for us. If we choose to say, I want to have meaning in life. I'm interested in interrogating and investigating the one person I can't get rid of, me, which each of us can say that. And what more entertaining story to tell that we are each individually the author of our own. If we can just get a little bit better, a little more true to who we are. And if you don't like the word better, which some people like, I don't like better, worse, fine. Then just say true. A little more true to ourselves, a little bit more each day, chasing that with which we see as our transcendent self down the line. And maybe 10 years is too far out for some people. For some people, it needs to be, who am I going to be tomorrow? That's as far as some people can go. Mm-hmm. For other people can go, 10 years isn't enough. I want to go to my eulogy and say, what's that story that's going to introduce me forever when I'm gone? Let me chase that down. And you could argue some people go further than that and go transcendently past that, past this lifetime. But put a marker out there. We know, and then trust that it takes work and maintenance. Architecture is a verb, is one of my greatest African proverbs, they told me. And they told me I was on the banks of the Niger River, and these bozo fishermen build these beautiful mud huts on the river. And then every year, certain wet season, the rains come, the waters rise, whoop, wash them away, and they're gone. So they move to the highlands, and then as soon as that season's over, 3 months later, they come back to the ground, back to the river's edge, and build them again. I'm like going, what? I think they stay up there. They're like, no, they're fishermen. But they rebuild this thing. And my guide over that time, Isa, interrupts me. He goes, architecture is a verb. Life is a verb. And we're the architects. Or if you're a believer, God's the architect and we're the construction. But however you put it, it's a verb.
And all too often we get too attached to these sandcastles. We're too worried about these things that we're always building on low tide, and the tide of time is going to come wash away all of the things. And eventually, even Matthew McConaughey is going to be just a little footnote in the history books for people to look back on. It doesn't really matter. And I think people got so attached to, I'm going to build this giant statue of me and it'll be there forever. So what? Time's eventually going to erase all of that anyways. But really the true power then, the true transcendence is every once in a while we get to touch not only our future self, but our infinite self. Just that expression of love, that moment where we look in our wife's eyes and we're just like, you just feel that love swelling and you're not even there anymore. You are just the embodiment and the essence of something that's greater than you could ever be. And we get to touch those moments, and feel what that's like. And that's that's who we really are. That's the only monument we need to be, is we're love itself. You know?
You heard that quote? Someone goes, the young man goes to his buddy and he's trying to find what's the meaning of life. And the guy he's talking to has a newborn, and the newborn's like, "Wah!" He's like, "What kind of stupid question is that, man? That's the meaning of life right there. Just had a newborn. Wait, what's this existential questioning bullshit you're doing? The man just had a new child." That's fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. It's in the cries and the laughs, and that's that's living that life. One of my greatest guide stars is the Lakota idea of hokahe. Today is a good day to die. You can only say today is a good day to die when you've fucking lived. When you really fucking lived and you've loved and you've done everything you could. And then if that bus comes and just comes out of nowhere, out of your blind spot and takes you out, all right. Like, I fucking live. Okay.
Well, we don't, and I'd say it's probably more Americans I don't think we have a healthy enough relationship with the concept of death. Some people talk about it. They're like knocking on wood, and you're going, "What are you doing that for?" It's one thing we can rely on. I didn't just say ooga booga. We're going to die. I mean, can everyone and I say it with the kids. It's like, it's okay. It's going to happen.
Yeah. It's
an impermanent life in the physical body that we live here. So to talk about death and not feel like, oh, it's a morose thing, or, what's that? Kenny Chesney's got a great line about it. Everybody wants to go to heaven. Just nobody's in a rush to get there. So whatever, even believers don't like to talk about it. I think we can get what you're saying is a really good, valuable practice. No, realize that. Shake hands with the fact that you're going to leave this lifetime at some point. And you said it. When you go, today's a day, I'm going to die. You don't shrivel up now. You actually go, woo, okay, well, let's get it on.
Yes.
Start living a lot more and harder and more truly, and things mean more. It's a really good place to get objective in each one of our own life. Just try and consider it and try to grasp on, let the thought. Some people have trouble keeping the thought even in their head for half a second, or don't want to go there, or feel like, oh, if I go there, I don't trust that I won't be seeking it. No, we're not. To realize it doesn't mean you're going to seek it or be drawn to it more.
Yeah, it's not that they want to die.
No.
It's just saying, if today is the day, it's a good day.
Blue zones. Dan Buettner with Blue Zones has studied people who live the longest around the world. They're called centurions or centenarians, I think. Yeah. And the common denominator that came out was none of them live longer because they tried to live longer. They live longer because they forgot to die.
Yeah, they were too busy enjoying life. And sometimes that meant smoking a cigarette. I read a book about a lot of these that, studied the biographies of them. They did all kinds of different things. They ate different ways, but it was community, it was friendship, it was a feeling of not being alone. And it was this zest and this zeal for life where they just wanted to keep fucking living.
Yeah. But they drank their wine, they smoked their cigarettes. It's another thing they didn't wear? They didn't wear watches.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's an interesting one, because you're like, yeah, our concept of time, and we race against time. We try to if you don't have a concept of time, think how much less stress you'd have. You gotta have a concept of time, but if you didn't have a watch, you're always checking for the schedule, or I'm supposed to do this at this time. I think it'd be a lot less stress. I'm very interested in what are simple tools you can use to help. Like, for instance, why, they say we're getting too much sodium in our diet. Well, why are the salt shakers, why are the little salt packets have enough salt to go on 15 meals, but the pepper packets ain't enough to go on half of a meal, Or you want to lose weight? Okay, forget the diets. How about this? I'm going to steal all your forks and spoons and knives, and you get one pair of chopsticks. You would lose weight, right? Because you're eating slower. So what are these little ways where you can kind of re-engineer a situation? No watches is a pretty good one for decrease.
I thought it reminds me, when I was writing my book, Own the Day, which is all about these personal practices to help you, achieve a lot of these physical goals, all the physical goals, really. I thought about that, what you're talking about with eating, because the amount of the speed at which you eat, how much you chew, you know, it really actually makes a dramatic impact on obesity when they do these, you know, longitudinal studies. And I was thinking, what if we made silverware that was like 5-pound fork, but it had one of those little crab cocktail forks at the end of it, you know? So it's this big old thing and it just had this little head on it and you just had to fight through with this little, you know, inconvenient tool, but you know, it would make a huge impact if people just change that.
Change the tool.
Yeah.
When I lost all that weight for Dallas Buyers Club, 47 pounds, I would eat tapioca pudding for breakfast. And I was down in New Orleans, so I found one of those old antebellum little sugar spoons.
Yes.
Because I wanted it to last longer. I'd make a little 5-ounce thing of tapioca last 45 minutes.
One tapioca at a time. Yeah, it's great, man. It's great. You know, one of the places, it's hard in this world to lose track of time. Our phones are always on us. We have schedules. I mean, one of the great places for me is when I've dropped into plant ceremonies and plant medicine ceremonies. And there you enter a timeless space that you don't dare bring your phone or your watch into one of these things. And you mentioned this in one of the, right at the start of your book, you said, and I actually referenced it at the start, you said, I've done peyote in Real de Catorce, Mexico, in a cage with a mountain lion. But we didn't hear that story in the book. So if you could tell that story, I would love to hear what that was like.
Well, in talking about earlier, you know, where kiss the fire, walk away with some, where do we go places where there's not too many sharp edges? I would say this, and I'm sure my guess is that you would comply and agree with this, but I did peyote the right way with the right shaman, which started at sunrise with a long walk up to the crest of a mountain. And it was slowly disseminated, kind of walk the dog, meaning I didn't do peyote at a rage party. I went out into Mother Nature and it was sunrise and got to the top and, you know, the bees buzzing at all the daisies at the top of the hill sounded like Phil Spector's Wall of Sound. You know, my senses are heightened, right? Well, we get back down around noon and I'm coming off the high, but I'm still, you know, those highs last months, if not lifetimes, if you're lucky. But there's this mountain lion in this cage. And, you know, with or without peyote, I fancy myself as a man who can get along with certain mammals pretty well, or get on their frequency. I'm outside the cage and I'm finding my voice's frequency to match this mountain lion's frequency. And I'm kind of just over there and I'm very relaxed. And he comes over, he's pacing the cage and slowly he comes over as I got my finger in the cage and he comes over and paces some more, comes back, finally comes up and kind of gnaws on a little bit, but playfully, and then licks it. Now he's gotten very calm. There's a gate over here. I slowly moved, opened up the gate, moved slowly, closed the gate behind me, slowly moved to the other side of the cage where I just sat down. Now he got a little uptight again, so he starts pacing back and forth and giving a few of those, and I'm just like, staying on his frequency. He slowly paces forward, gets a little more comfortable. And about an hour and a half later, he comes up and finally engages and touches my hand and gives me a lick. Then he moved in, laid down next to me. And after about 3 hours, that son of a gun was purring in my lap. And wow. Yeah, it was you know, that was, I did not feel any danger at the time.
Right.
I knew there was some fear. I mean, I knew look, he was not a starving mountain lion. Okay.
Right.
You know, that's another thing. You don't want to.
Well, you would have felt that though. You know, that's the thing. Like you were in resonance.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was in the same resonance. Great word for it. I learned that in Africa, you know, I've crossed many a river at neck height when the alligators are floating right there in the wet season, when they're well fed. But no way was I even going in that water ankle deep in the dry season when those son of a guns were just feverish looking for something to eat. You know what I mean? So the mountain lion was fed, and I did not feel that I was going to be on his menu.
And what a cool reward to be able to interact with the frequency of an animal like that, you know, an apex predator. I mean, there's a reason why the jaguar or the mountain lion is at the top of the animal hierarchy in most of these traditions because they were the fearless ones. And that's the state that we all aspire to, being the apex predator, the fearless one. And like to be there with that animal must have been a really fucking cool experience.
Incredibly cool. Yeah. Oh, I was buzzing off of that and the whole morning for literally months. But when you go through those times, you want to, or you try to go, okay, I crossed the truth here. Now, how do I preserve that? How do I remember this perspective? Not by meaning, oh, now I'm going to go try to be with every mountain lion. No, the overall experience of the morning and the day and the peyote and the walk and nature and coming back, I was on frequency. So, love it when those certain perspectives cross you at that time. You go, I need to take this with me back into the Coliseum of life and try to be hearing and seeing the same way. And of course, they get stripped away the longer we're in it. We got to head back out for another walkabout.
Yeah.
But, try to preserve those for as much as possible for as long as possible.
Yeah, man. So what is it, it felt like a deep calling for you to write this book, to share this, and to have you, Matthew, be the hero of your own story and share that story with everybody. What is it that's, firing you up now? What do you feel inspired or called to? Is there anything that's kind of, got you inspired, got you filled with a little fire?
Yeah. The Minister of Culture work that I'm curating and working on right now, which started with the University of Texas, and now I'm branching out into our great city of Austin, Texas. Bipartisan and non-denominational, it seems to me that values are the things that we can all agree on, a common denominator of values that help us with our identity, no matter if we sit on opposite sides of the aisle or on opposite pews of our beliefs. I think the things that that will reconnect and to rebind our social contracts again, which are very broken right now, not just in Austin, but I mean, as a people, United States. I don't think, we don't trust each other as much. We don't know who to believe in. We don't have expectations that we can have for ourselves that we feel match with someone else unsaid. And so Austin, the great city of Austin, which has a lot of soul, is obviously and has been going through an amazing growth spurt. And it's no longer a music, university, and government town. It's a music, government, university, tech, lawyer, banker, international destination. One of the fastest growing cities in the nation. We're most popular as well. And I want to have shared values, a shared and competent value campaign that reminds Austinites why we love Austin, why we love it here, and also educates and initiates the newcomer to say, hey, don't be coming here trying to turn here into why you left there.
Right.
This is who we are. This is a place, as Roy Spence says, where nobody's too good and nobody's good enough. Hey, let's pay the duty to the city that we love. Let's pay our tithe to it. Let's spend conscious money. Let's create more art than we consume. Let's honor imagination. Let's keep sharing our Rolodexes with each other, because here we don't have to run over each other to get our blue ribbons. We can go do it. We can go get them both side by side. Let's hold ourselves accountable to not solving every single problem we have, but to saying, hey, let's know when to forgive. And if somebody's seeking real retribution for something, let's forgive them, because Austin is a city of second chances. Austin is a city where all you really got to be is you. Don't come here trying to be anybody else, or don't come here trying to act like what you think we are. Just be you. And we'll try to work through it. So it's an aspirational value campaign that caters to things. It's Austin's lyrics is what I want to put out there, and in a very for certain messaging, like there's some of them are fun riddles. Like we're not a horn honking town. Hey, that may be cool ambiance in New York, but not around here. Let's not get in that habit. Let's be cool.
Right. All right.
So we got a traffic problem. Let's work through that. But it doesn't mean we got to start blaring on the damn horn everywhere. It may be things like, as a music town, Austin, follow your ears. You like what you see. Things that are just put a smile on your face that say, oh, conscious money. What's that mean? Oh, okay. Ask not what Austin can do for you. Ask what you can do for Austin. Oh, we just put it on me? Okay, I'm going to look. Oh, that's right. I do love it here. And I've got to pay a little tithe and do a little work to maintain the village values that I love about this place while we embrace progress and become a great metropolis. Because we don't want to get caught looking in the mirror. Oh, look at us, most popular. Woohoo. Let them all, everyone come in. More socialites. Great. What's the socialite do? I don't know, but bring them. You know what I mean? We don't want to get caught looking in the mirror because going, look how great we are, which I don't think we're doing that, but we have to watch we don't. And we have to say, how can we grow forward and become things like, a new friend of mine the other day said this, what if Austin became the B Corp capital of the planet? That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, it would.
Can Austin become a place where, has the highest rate of employee happiness? Can Austin become a place where that crime rate that's going up now drops back down? Can Austin become a place where the community has a healthy relationship again with the police force? Not them versus us, Can we, for my money, get rid of the bad eggs, but not throw the whole thing out in the garbage? We need the law and order. We know that people need those guardrails and rules. We got to have them. But it also Austin celebrates our freedoms. But we know that our freedom in Austin, especially as the blueberry and the tomato soup, we know they cost us something to get them. Mm-hmm. They ain't for free. And we need to reestablish those contracts with each other so we can then reestablish them with ourselves. And I believe, as we've been saying, it starts with you and me and each person to go look in the mirror and go, I'm going to be a little bit better today. I'm going to have a higher expectation of myself than someone else. I'm going to look somebody else in the eye so I can gain a little bit more trust in them. And by looking them in the eye and maybe going over the other side of town where I don't go, I now kind of know them. I've looked in the eye. It's much harder for me to do harm. Now it's much harder for me not to consider them in my choices because I've looked them in the eye or met them. And Austin is a place, it can be a large metropolis city where we actually all feel like neighbors. And I think we do that through values. So that's what's turning me on.
I love it, man. I love it because I love Austin. It's been my home, as I said, for, almost 25 years now. But to have something that you can actually push into that feels like it's putting loving arms around the whole city and improving the whole city. Cause I don't really feel like through government is the way that this gets done. A different law, different policy. This is culture, and culture is not mandated. Culture comes from within. My company of 190 employees, it's not because we have a culture mandate. Everybody's like, oh, the culture at Onnit's great. It's because everybody's living it. It's everybody's being it. And then there's, that kind of, as I said, resonance, and the vibration is just like, all right, we care about this. We love this thing. We give people all the freedom, but their love is what draws them to it. It's not the draconian rules and the punch-in clocks and all of that. It's like, no, we love this thing. We want it to grow, and we want it to be what it was always destined to be. So I love that you're doing that, man. And as a fellow resident of this city, if there's anything I can do, I'm fucking there.
Well, I'll share a lot of. I'm working right now on getting and partnering with different startups in Austin that are going to help sort of partner up and fund the campaign to go out and have the ads around Austin via billboards, via digital, et cetera. And yeah, Austin's worth flying our flag and writing that headline and reminding ourselves who we are and who we can be. And growing, let's be the big 10 million. Let's become the 10 million person metropolis that you go. That place is still Austin, not the 10 million person metropolis where we look up 15 years from now and go, what the hell happened? Who are we? What are we? Which happens to so many cities that grow so fast. They say yes to everything, and all of a sudden look up and go, what did we become?
And then we become the proof of concept for all the other cities to do the same. And we do that.
Leading light, man,
That's
on the
it.
globe.
That's it.
Leaders, because Austin does this. We have to watch Austin in our sort of laissez-faire, sort of why it's so easy to get along with people. We have to watch, I think, sometimes we are too indifferent. I think we can own our IP. I think as a city, we should own who we are and who we're becoming and say, let's plant our flag and let's lead. No, we've never been a city that looks outside of ourselves for someone else's approval. And we're not looking for that now. But let's become something that we can go, you want to see how to do it? Right here.
Let's go. Let's go. Lead from the front. That's it. And all we can do is start at home. Like you want to change something, just start right at home. That could be the self, that could be your city, that could be your neighborhood, that could be reaching out to your neighbors, that could be doing all those things. And hell, I could do a better job in my little neighborhood of, 10 houses enough. I don't know nearly enough neighbors in here, but like doing all of those different steps to bring this community of our city, I think it's a beautiful concept. And as I said, man, I'm all in.
I'll be hitting you up.
All right, brother. Well, Matthew, man, you've done the world just such a great service by telling this story. You didn't have to do this. You didn't have to go tell all your tales and reveal everything about you, but you did it. And, the ripples of that will be felt in the hearts and the minds and the consciousness of people for a long fucking time. So just as somebody who's benefited from it, I just give you the utmost gratitude for everything you've done here, man.
Man, thank you. It means a lot to me. And thank you for sharing. I'm so glad you received it that way. And thanks for sharing that with me. And then thanks for spending the time here today to sit here and talk for however long we talked. I figured that the main problem would be what it is, finishing on time.
Yeah. The Wizards are always on time. All right, my brother. Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for tuning in. Much love. Thanks for checking out this video. For more like it, please subscribe to my channel. And of course, the Aubrey Marcus podcast with new episodes every single week. And follow me on Instagram @Aubrey Marcus. Thank you so much.